Hey guys, today we're gonna check out how to play the 5-star characters Blonney, Zatsuki and Diggers. Starting off with Blonney. So for Blonney, first of all, her Insight 2 gives her 15% critical hit rate by default, and that is very important. You will figure out soon why exactly that is so important. So let's look at her incantation number 1 first. That's one target attack. It deals 200 reality damage. Meh. It hits the numbers, but that's about it. But if you rank this up to rank 2 or rank 3, then it also would inflict a stack of confusion onto one target. And this stack of confusion leads to decreasing the enemy's critical resist rate by 25%. Unfortunately, this only lasts for one round, so you have to use this move in combination with either your other move or with your ultimate. That is the most preferred way actually, and you have to rank this up, keep that in mind. Then her incantation number 2 deals to one target 160% damage. We want to hit 200, so that is not okay. That is not good enough. But this attack does not only enjoy critical hit rate, but also critical damage plus 25%. And remember, we already have a 15% by default, so in total this would add up to 40% critical hit rate and critical damage for this attack. This is pretty good actually, and yeah, Blonney is all about critting your opponent. And she actually provides a lot of not only critical hit rate, but also critical damage to herself. That makes her quite respectable, and it gets way better when we look at her ultimate in combination of her Insight 1 and Insight 3. So let me unlock her ultimate real quick, and then we will talk about things further. Alright, here we have it. So what this does is it deals 250% reality damage to all enemies. That's not enough, but it also increases the critical hit rate of this attack by a further 40%, because this does 25, and remember the default. And now you have to use this ultimate move in combination of her incantation number 1 on rank 2 to inflict this stack of confusion, which then increases your critical hit rate by a further 25%. So we are talking about a 65% critical hit rate here if we use it in this combination. Also, where things get even more interesting is that her Insight number 1 says that whenever you use an ultimate ability, this one, then you get an increase in critical hit rate and critical damage by 20% for 2 rounds. Now we are up to a 85% critical hit rate, and her Insight 3 also grants us critical hit rate and critical damage by 10%, and this actually lasts forever. So now you can see, if we combine all of these numbers together, we are 95% guaranteed to actually crit with our ultimate. And this is where team building comes in. Now you want a character that grants Blonney as much crit rate and critical hit damage as possible. So Tooth Fairy would not be too bad, but Mercuria would actually be the perfect partner for Blonney, and it would make it so that Blonney is over 100% in fact guaranteed to always crit with at least her ultimate, and that's pretty incredible, you know. But again, like you have to unlock your ultimate, you have to have your incantation number 1 on rank 2, and you really want a character that increases her crit rate even further. So it is it is something to ask for, but actually not too much, you know. All she needs is a partner, basically, that increases her critical hit rate by a little bit. And that's really about it. Then, yeah, she's a pretty good main DPS. And another thing you have to keep in mind is that, yeah, you want to play her as a main DPS, and you want to use her incantations as much as possible, because every single time you use an ultimate, you increase your critical hit rate and critical damage by 10%. So the more and more you use your ultimate, the more and more damage you will deal with crits, and the more and more likely you are to actually critical hit in the first place, you know. So yeah, that's all about Blonney. That's how you play her, how her combinations work, how her insight works, and what characters you should pair her with. Then we can move on to Zatsuki now. Now onto Zatsuki, that is pretty easy and straightforward. So first of all, I don't have her insight number 1 unlocked. If I would have it unlocked, then 1 stack of rigidity would already be applied to all of my opponents. Rigidity is when this hits 2 stacks, the enemy gets petrified, aka turned to stone, so they wouldn't be able to act for 1 round. And her incantation number 1 is quite underwhelming, because yeah, it hits the numbers, but that's it, you know. It hits 2 enemies for 120% damage. You would want to hit them for 130 at the very least. But since this attack actually enjoys penetration rate plus 30%, you kind of hit this 130, like roughly speaking, so it's okay, nothing special. Where things do become a little bit special is her incantation number 2, because if you would rank this up to rank 2, you would also inflict 1 stack of rigidity to your opponent, and combined with her insight 1, you can turn 1 enemy into stone quite quickly, right? And yeah, that would give you a turn, and you can continuously apply these stacks of rigidity. Very slow though, because you need this on rank 2, but you apply them and you occasionally turn an enemy to stone. Helps. Like, you want to play her as a support, and you pretty much never want to use her incantation number 1, because all it does, it deals a little bit of damage. Usually you want to refrain from using it, and you want to see that you get your hands onto your incantation number 2 to rank it up to level 2. And yeah, that's already pretty much about it for Zatsuki now. She of course has a quite interesting ultimate, let me say it like that, so let me unlock it and talk about it. And there we have it. It's a 1 target attack. It deals the required damage, so it hits the numbers, and you immediately turn an enemy into stone, just like that. So let me use it to showcase that. And that's really about Zatsuki. You play her as a support. You aim at ranking up your incantation number 2 to rank 2 to inflict the stacks of rigidity combined with your incantation, with your insight number 1. And once you unlock her ultimate, you can turn an enemy to stone, just like that. So what it boils down to is you will turn an enemy to stone here and there, and that supports your team by them taking less damage and you buy your team a little bit of time. And yeah, when you have your ultimate, you use your ultimate, and that's really about Zatsuki already. Now let's talk about diggers, and oh boy, let me break down to you why this character is so extremely fucking ass, okay? So if we look at his incantation number 1, it's a mass debuff. It hits all the enemies, and it reduces the reality defense and the mental defense by 15% for 2 rounds. Now, a lot of characters in this game have a debuff like this, or a buff even like this, that reduces something from the enemies or increases something for your party. And reducing the reality and mental defense, that is pretty much completely useless, because you build a team that either deals reality damage or mental damage. It's barely combined, you know, you barely play a team where you combine both reality and mental damage. So one of these effects is in most cases already really useless, and this is all this incantation does. Now sure, you could rank this up to rank 2, and that would also inflict a stack of terror to all of your enemies. And terror is that at the end of the round, the enemy that terror is inflicted onto loses a moxie, but then the terror stack also goes away. So it is absolutely not worth it to rank this up just to consume one of your opponent's moxie, you know. So all things considered, this incantation is completely unusable garbage already. Then his incantation number 2, yeah, at least, I mean, it hits the numbers, but he milled. When you rank this incantation up, the damage that it deals doesn't increase. All that it does is it inflicts a stack of weakness to the target that you use it on, and weakness makes it so that the next attack that this opponent would perform onto one of your allies would deal 25% reduced damage. You see how weak these incantations are by default, and how upgrading them is so absolutely not worth it at all. Like, well, it's really rough. This is this is a character that contests for being the worst character in the entire game, actually. But let me unlock his ultimate and show you that one as well real quick. So here we have it, and you will immediately see it's a one target attack, and it deals 450% damage, which is 100% damage to not enough, right? It doesn't deal enough damage, it doesn't hit the numbers. Then it inflicts nightmare to that enemy for 1 round, right? That's only one enemy though, and it only lasts for 1 round. So why wouldn't you just use Baby Blue instead, and inflicts nightmare on the entire enemy team instead of just one target, you see? And you could of course increase this nightmare status to 2 rounds if your opponent already suffers a debuff. That's okay, you know, like CCing one target for 2 rounds just for them having a debuff on them, that's not too bad, you know. That's like the best thing that Diggers has, is an ultimate that doesn't hit the numbers but makes one target, one opponent of yours, unable to act for 2 rounds if they have a debuff attached to them. And yeah, that's the best thing that Diggers does, and everything else is pretty much completely useless. Sure, his incantation number 2 at least hits the numbers, but his incantation number 1 is complete ass. And its incantation number 2 is also not great. Just hitting the numbers, and that's all you do. And upgrading is completely useless as well. I mean, that's not it. He or Mr. Duncan, one of these 2 characters, they are the worst characters in the game. Of course, Desert Final, a character that we will talk about, I think tomorrow. Also, like, wow, this is so terrible. The recommendation of how to play Diggers for me would be to not play Diggers at all. Excuse me, but I really have to say it like that. He doesn't synergize with anything. He doesn't do anything. There is nothing that you could possibly really do with this character. But I mean, if this is for some reason your favorite character in the game, just slot him into any team you want, right? It doesn't matter if you deal reality or mental damage with your DPS characters. So I mean, I guess he fits into everything. Like, either he fits into every single team or into actually no team whatsoever, because he's that bad. So yeah, that's about Diggers. Let's look at the Psycube for all of these 3 characters real quick. We have for Blonney, for rehabilitation, because more critical hit rate is all that Blonney wants, but additionally you increase your incantation might as well, and it grants you a little bit of scaling, and you will scale with this really fast, because you will constantly use your incantations to begin with, as you are the main DPS. And yeah, no other Psycube in this game grants you more critical hit rate. and you gain an additional incantation might on top of that, so this is perfect use for rehabilitation for Blonney. In case of Satsuki, yeah, there is really no Psycube that I could like 100% recommend. You could use Luxurious Leisure to, every time you use a single target ultimate, your damage increases by 5%. That's a really good effect in general. But then, like, you don't want to use Zatsuki too much, so unlocking your ultimate will probably take a while, and that would make it really slow to stack up this Luxurious Leisure. Or then here, yeah, like, you gain a bunch of ultimate might with the Psycube Brave New World, and after you use an ultimate, one of your next incantations deals plus 20%. I think that is actually a tiny little bit better than Luxurious Leisure, so I would recommend personally to use Brave New World. But then again, which Psycube you use on Satsuki doesn't really matter. It's all about balancing out her flaws as much as possible, but you don't need that. All that Zatsuki is about is the CC that she provides with stacking Rigidity to petrify a target. So yeah, I mean, whatever, right? For the character Diggers, we have Blasphemer of Night, as yeah, you can trigger this just by yourself by ranking up your incantation number 2 to rank 2 and using your incantation number 1. It balances out his damage output a little bit, yeah, better than anything else, you know. But anyways, that's it for the video, guys. I hope that was fun and informative. If you like Reverse1999 content in general, please consider leaving a follow on my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until next time, take care of yourselves, have a great day, and don't forget to join the Discord server. And we love this game.